I'm finally done with the Booker long list. Let's talk about the last book I read and let's wrap this sucker up. Hello, book friends. It's Alyssa. Welcome back to the channel. Hello, if you're new. Let's talk about the last final book that I've read for the Booker long list for 2023. It's finally freaking over. I read Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, and this is the last book, but mostly I'm just so freaking happy to be done with this challenge. This was exhausting. I don't know if I want to do this again next year. You're gonna have to convince me. Someone's gonna have to twist my arm because this was an exhausting pace at which to read 13 lit fic books of dubious origin, and I just that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about Study for Obedience and give you my quick thoughts, my thoughts. We finally made it to the end of the road. I can't believe it. Anyway, I really thought that this was going to be a book that I absolutely adored, but I'm kind of conflicted on it and I'm not really sure where to place it. You're going to see I'm kind of going to end up placing it sort of in the middle of my liking list because I just still don't know what to do with this book and my feelings on it. This is about an unnamed woman, our unnamed narrator, who comes to a village in some sort of northern community in England somewhere. We don't really know. It's not really named. And she goes to take care of her brother because his brother's wife has recently left him. And she goes to take care of him to basically be his maid in his home. There is this whole strange vibe going on when she gets there. It seems that the family has some sort of connection to this village. Our narrator, despite having a grasp of multiple languages, can't speak the dialect in this area. She has a very hard time communicating. She's very much treated like an outsider and almost like there's a lot of suspicion around her because when she arrives, a bunch of things start happening with like the livestock and farming, and she becomes this like bad omen that has entered the village. But the villagers seem to like her brother, so we never really get it quite, or at least I didn't see any good explanation as to why the villagers are so hesitant and so superstitious around her. There's a whole scene with like someone spilling salt and her trying to do something to like alleviate what appears to be a lot of superstitious anxiety around the spilling of salt, and that somehow then makes it worse. So basically, it just seems like anything this woman does to try to ingratiate herself with the villagers just kind of makes the relationship worse. It's a very like atmospheric, insular, tense book, which I adored. You're waiting for something like truly terrible to happen the entire time, or at least I was. I was waiting for this moment where like the villagers would just like pick up their pitchforks and their torches and just storm the manor house and get the narrator because she's a witch or just something like that. That doesn't happen. But it is potentially the story of being Jewish in an area that's incredibly anti-Semitic. There are some references to Shabbat and some other things that make it clear potentially. Is that clear then? Our characters are Jewish, our main characters are Jewish. Perhaps the village doesn't appreciate that. Maybe they find Jewish customs and ways to be too foreign. None of this is truly explained or explained well. And this is where like my conflict with the story comes. I don't mind that there's no quotations. I don't mind that this is all sort of just like inner soliloquy or monologue from our narrator. I almost don't even mind the random leaning in on this strange incestual bond between sister and brother where she's like bathing him and doing all kinds of things, and they have their doors open all the time so that they can always be seen by the other depending. It's a little weird. It's a little Cassie Clare, but it's okay. I can get past that. I my fear with this book is that this is the kind of thing that has beautiful writing, that has great vibes, potentially no substance, or so much substance that you only grasp it on reread. And this is where I have worries and hesitations because I don't know if it's worth rereading it or if I'm just going to end up being disappointed. And hopefully that makes some sense. And I've seen this in a lot of reviews as well, that a lot of people are like, perhaps this is the kind of book that gets better upon each reread. But my fear is that maybe that's a false sense of security and that you're just going to keep rereading this book and never understanding everything and it never truly getting better, and it's just being this like Sisyphean task of trying to find the true inner meaning of study for obedience. But I do think it's clear that at its core, this is the story of being an outsider, of being othered, of living in a world where you are not accepted for who you are. And the culmination of the story is our narrator accepting the fact that they are going to live and be themselves, and that is it. And I think that that ultimate message of the book, the message of despite everything that's going around you, despite any hate or uncomfortableness you could receive, that you are going to proudly and unabashedly be yourself and like claim your right to live. And I did enjoy that. I do think that if you are somebody who needs a clearer plot, if you need more clear dialogue, if you don't want to be stuck in someone's head, I would steer clear of this. Like, this is almost stream of consciousness, but not quite. I have seen this referred to as millennial modernism, and I'm not exactly sure what that really means. So I would love to hear people's takes on what you think millennial modernism is, and if there are more things that you would stick under this um, heading, moniker, etc. End of the day, I don't know if one reading and reading it like quickly. I think some of the things that has been a disservice in some of these books for Booker and doing it this way and trying to read these rapidly in between the long list and short list announcement is that there is this loss of some things to this because you're reading things at speed. Whereas like last year I read all but Booth because I refused to read Booth. I read them a month at a time. I read each book and I feel like I had a much better experience overall reading those books, even if at the end of the day, when I look back, I didn't like every book from 2022 Booker. I did generally have a better experience reading all the Booker books. I think because I gave them time, and doing this in such a condensed manner has done a disservice to some books. And I think this is one of those books that perhaps uh, I would have enjoyed more if I had savored longer instead of, frankly, like I've been coming down with a cold and I wanted to get this done. And I have this looming deadline of the shortlist announcement where I want to have these up and edited by. So I feel like perhaps this would be better if it was savored. And I am sort of flirting with the idea of when the audiobook does come out in a week or so, perhaps trying to either get it from the library, find it on Scribd, find some way of listening to it, maybe at a slower pace to see if I do end up moving this up sort of on my list and liking it more. I don't dislike this. I think there's some truly beautiful writing. I'd be very interested to see what Sarah Bernstein does next. I think there's a lot of really great world building that has happened in this, so you feel like you are really in this tense village, but there are things that are lacking that maybe if she had threw in some more conventional things into the story, like dialogue, maybe it would have been clearer and easier to connect for a wider range of readers with the story. I don't know if that made sense. I think that it would be easier for a wider range of readers to connect with the story if there were more conventional things in the plot and it wasn't quite so stylistic. And this is another book like Prophet Song that's just big chunks of text. But this one really is done well. I think because it doesn't really have dialogue, I think one of the really big issues with Prophet Song and the way that chunks of text was done there is that you were actually doing conventional things. You were just squishing it into chunks of text. So you had people actually talking and having conversation, but you really do need to have something to clearly delineate who's speaking. Even if you're choosing to do that in a way to showcase maybe chaos or some emotional sense, it didn't play out there. But here, having it literally just be the inner thoughts and monologues and ramblings almost of this woman in this village, and she goes back and forth between childhood, her time in the village, current, past, present, all over the place. It flows a lot more, like I said, like a stream of consciousness, where you can relate more naturally to it because that's kind of how our thoughts flow at any given time. We don't think in dialogue chunks like that. We may recall a conversation with somebody, but we're not having dialogue by dialogue by dialogue conversation in our heads. I feel like I'm rambling now because I desperately need to have a cup of tea, but and probably get horizontal again. But Tylenol works wonders. I will say that. That is the Booker long list for 2023. This is my final ranking based on my feelings on the books, not my shortlist predictions for the judges, but my feeling on the books that I read for Booker 2023. I would love to know what some of your top books are for Booker. What books you think are going to be shortlisted? Is there a book that you would just scream if it was the winner? Like angrily? Was there a book that you like need to win and you'll be really mad if it's not even shortlisted? Give me like all of your thoughts, your tea. Why am I doing all of this? That is all. I thought these would be short reviews, but I seem to be rambling. It's gonna be fun to edit these. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever